Good afternoon or good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Marit and I will moderate today's session. This week has been an exciting week for ONTOFORCE since we have launched a special edition of our self-service knowledge discovery platform, the DISQOVER COVID-19 Edition. This edition is basically our product response to the current global pandemic. We believe DISQOVER is ideally suited to integrate accurate, up-to-date information related to coronavirus from around the world. With new data sources specific to coronavirus, a daily refresh frequency, and free access for you to use, we aim to keep you up to date within this current pandemic. For today's session, we have two speakers. The first is Philippe Patin. Philippe is ONTOFORCE scientific lead. The second speaker is Hans Constant. Hans is the founder of ONTOFORCE. After their explanation and demonstration, you will have the opportunity to ask questions by raising your virtual hand in the Zoom application or typing your question in the chat function. But without any further ado, Philippe, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marit, for the introduction. So good morning, everybody, or good afternoon from my side too. So what I would like to do with you today is, like Marit nicely introduced, show you a little bit more about our implementation of a COVID-19 DISQOVER edition. So I will start with briefly sketching what that means, what an implementation of DISQOVER is and how it relates to what we already do. And also take a closer look to the data sources we have currently in scope. And then finally, Hans will join me to give a brief demo of what we can initially start with. And then we can finally have a Q&A session where you can ask your questions if there are any, or if you have recommendations that we like to hear to further extend what we offer here. So first starting with sketching a little bit what we are doing here with DISQOVER and our main product of ONTOFORCE. So for this COVID-19 edition, we focused on the whole idea of bringing you to a self-service knowledge discovery platform. So how to sketch the landscape, what we try to achieve with our product offering is, if you have different silos of information, for example, information which is covered in public data sources, license data, which you need specific agreements for or specific licensing for having access to this, or internal data that you own that you would like to bring together into a graph or a discovery environment, where finally you can do a number of results, or you can do a number of solutions here. And one of the most important things are searching in a very open way, Google-like style, but then with more links and filtering possibilities, broad scale searching, but also having the possibility to create dashboards or create specific types of reports, which allow you to make very concise, easy to digest, easy to understand information for peers. And finally, also, we offer you the possibility to do a number of analytical analyses or visualizations, which also help to finally get you to insights. That's where we are doing it for, and then make business decisions or scientific decisions which are proven or evidence-based. So how does it work? This is generally our offering. How does it work with this COVID-19 edition? If you go to this page, this is the central landing page, which allows you to further get some insights about what we have developed, some background information, and then a link through to the implementation. What we do is we base ourselves on the existing DISQOVER platform we have in our public offering. So if you go to www.discover.com, you will see how our public offering of 145 different sources are integrated. And what it means is that this is a very broad, usable platform. You have a number of possibilities there to do dashboarding analytics on the different integrated data sources. But that's, let's say, very broad, very inviting you to search for different use cases. It's not really directed towards specific implementations. Why are we doing this? Or why is this effort available? Because all these public data sources can be consumed by the community. This is part of giving something back to the community. But in the meantime, we could also apply these data for enriching other implementations of DISQOVER, where you have a local enrichment, a local implementation with local data or licensed data for specific use cases. And that's the example that we also developed here with DISQOVER COVID-19. It's a public available implementation of DISQOVER, which is tapping into this data, but more specifically, we have integrated a number of data sources which are centered around COVID-19. What is the purpose of this? This is not very broad scoping, or this is not meant to use in a broad scoped search. It's more towards specifically guiding you in specific use cases that we will establish here later on and during this webinar, but also that we will further develop together with you with input we receive from the public domain. So what are the data sources we currently have in scope? And this is, let's say, under constant change to a certain extent. If there is input or if there are possibilities to tap into other data, we definitely will do. So based on the 145 data sources we already have, we tapped into a number of additional sources. ClinicalTrials.gov and the WHO and World Health Organization data sources related to clinical trials. This is data we already have, but we implement in this current implementation of COVID-19 centered data sources, we implement these data sources on a daily basis. So that means that you have daily updates. We are very much in sync with these sources and with the other sources when relevant, to give you the latest information about clinical trials in these two registries. It's under investigation from our side to also potentially add other registries or other sources. If we look into publications, most of you who are familiar with the domain probably know PubMed as a central resource for publication information, or at least abstracts of publications. We also tap into that on a regular basis every day. And then you have a number of additional sources like Semantic Scholar, who has specifically compiled a number of sources or a number of publications related to COVID-19. And we also tap into very new, very recent submitted publications from bioRxiv. These three sources are used to do some text analytics, NLP on top of that. Some of the data is digested by SciByte with their Termite platform, where we bring also their enrichments inside the system. In addition, we used Amazon Comprehend as a service for text mining and further enriched also these sources, extracted certain concepts out of these resources, and also added them as a data source. And then finally, patents and active substances. There are two resources, lens.org, which have enriched and further, let's say, lifted up certain information about patents which are related to COVID-19. And then the CAS data source, the American Chemical Society data source, which lists a number of antiviral active substances which could be potentially related to COVID-19. All of this data, and you have here a number of data types, are grouped together. And how does it look? This is the big knowledge graph that we constructed. And what is important here to know is that this looks maybe like a furball, but that we can help you with the visualizations and the dashboards to guide you through this connected graph of all kinds of data types. So how to look at this? This is the complete setting. We focus very much on, and you see the slightly denser highlighted connectors. For example, COVID-19 publications are connected to a number of other data types. In addition, we also have a number of COVID-19 related clinical trials. They are also connected to other data types. And you see how, for example, publications and clinical trials are mutually connected to diseases, to active substances, to persons, etc. This is the way you can discover, or you can discover the data in this knowledge graph. And what I would like to do now is give the word to Hans, who will start his presentation. So I will stop sharing my screen and Hans will start sharing his screen, where you will be able to see how Hans will demonstrate a login and then a very basic first use case, and then we will further continue. Hans, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you hear me fine?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll take you for a quick spin on the COVID-19 setup. So when you log on, so I'm logging on right now on the DISQOVER COVID-19 platform. So when you start, it loads like your first landing page. So you see exactly as Philip said, these are the types that we show for COVID-specific information. So I will now click on the COVID trials, and you will see that the dashboard pops up. When the dashboard pops up, you see kind of all the COVID trials that we have extracted out of the publications and the clinical trials here, and also some relation related to this. For first-time users, we enabled like these quick buttons so you can quickly go to certain views to find your information. So now you see here some widgets, country widgets. You can then scroll by a condition and do selections, and in the right you see the results if you click on it. With these buttons, you can go to a specific use case where people said, what is the latest and the best clinical trials I can find to see what's happening? So we said here with this button, we take you to a next dashboard with the same information underneath it to show you all the trials since March 1st in 2020. So you see here nicely indeed that there is a gigantic uptake here in the number of trials. You can show on a map, and now we've colored them via the type of study. So you see we have observational, and you can click on these to make selections, and it will show the selections as you go. To make it simple for first-time users, we've got this go back button, which I will click now. And when I go back here, I have my information again. Be careful when you use a tool to clear your sessions if needed. Now I will take another view to really go in the knowledge graph. So here you see again the clinical trials, but now we have put a filter in there to see the intervention drug. And this data is then extracted from the unstructured data. So now when I click on hydroxychloroquine, you will see that it lists like all the trials with that specific intervention. That's nice to see because certain pharma, certain physicians are looking, where is this drug applied, how is it used, and can I reuse it for certain populations? And to show you quickly how the graph works, in the bottom we have what we call the linked data, the active substances. So now we will click on the graph that Philip also explained. And now we're showing the active substances, and you get that information. And you can say, for instance, where are specific of these diseases or conditions that are there. So I can click on asthma and others. And when you click on the right, you always get the full emerged data popping up. So you see now we have the identifiers of the information, the pharmacology, and so on. There's a lot more to the system. I will go back to my first search. So you can do this for clinical trials, as I showed you. You can do it for publications. Same there. You find the publications, and you see that we extracted diseases out of the publications, the viral terms, SARS-specific terms to go into your data. The second part of this demo, I will show you how this is all done. So on the top right, if you're a data scientist, you can click on the data ingestion engine. This is the work our team did in days to put all of this data together in a qualitative, reusable, and fast way. I'm going to zoom out now. So what I'm showing you now is the full pipeline of bringing data together. You see on the left that we start with the sources, the blue ones. Then gradually we make these pipelines. We do extractions, we pass names, we assign URIs, and then you go on and each color has a special function. You move on and ultimately we build and publish it all in DISQOVER to make these nice views that people can use. So underneath you see kind of some of the data sets. And the nice thing to show you, I'm going to highlight some of them just for this. I'm going to take Amazon Comprehend. I can select this and I can select like all the downstream components and show these. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And there you will see how we make these kind of pipelines. So we start with an import, we assign URIs, and then we start to do all of these semantic manipulations and transformations to ultimately build one of these types that show nicely in the UI of the DISQOVER platform. So in total, you see we had around 500 components. You can do this upstream and downstream, so it's really nice because you can also select, for instance, on clinical trials or disease, and then see if you select this one, you can see which kind of data sources contribute this. So we have also made the UI here on top of the data to bring simplicity to complexity here next to in our interface. So this is a full pipeline which we've built. We've shown the UI, and I think I'm done with the demo, and I can take some questions, or we can take some questions.
Okay, Hans, you can stop sharing, and then I can move again to the presentation. And
Perfect.
probably, Marit, there are probably questions coming in our direction. Can you?
Yes, I see already one question coming in. A question from Michael. Michael, you can ask your question.
Okay. Hi.
Hello.
Really nice, really nice platform you have there. So my question is, for example, let's say I work in a lab and I get a CSV with COVID data. Can I simply upload the CSV to your platform and convert it to RDF and integrate it in the knowledge graph?
I can take maybe that question. You are not able to do that because you will not get let's say the access rights to manipulate the data structure here and the whole configuration, but we are able to do that. So the whole idea is that we can share you that data if you want to, but indeed, if you have the right access rights, you're able to start from a CSV file and then further structure it and enrich it.
Okay, and I have another question.
Yes.
So let's say I'm the same guy and I happen to know a lot about the Sparkle, which is very strange.
Yes.
And will I be able to query the knowledge graph directly?
Your question is probably, is there a Sparkle endpoint
yes.
available? Yes. So you see that we have, we apply, let's say, semantic web technologies under the hood of our application, but we are not using a triple store or a Sparkle endpoint for interacting with the data. What we are able to do is that you can use the API to interrogate with the system, but we don't have a Sparkle endpoint at this moment.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
And Michael, I want to quickly add to that with the upcoming release also, you will be able to do more with making these scripts. And of course, if you have your own version, you can make these scripts yourself, right? So we'll train you to do so.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a small addition is, indeed, we cannot fully export the data. This is a little bit of a technical question, Micheal, but you are into this. We can do a full export of the data in RDF so that you can use all the data which is on the platform and use it in an endpoint, in a Sparkle endpoint or in a triple store.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Another question that has come in is, let me check. What's the flexibility of the platform?
So the flexibility of the platform in sense of data sources,
yes,
or configuration. Yeah. If you think about data sources, actually the platform is very generic. You can extend in different directions. So it means that you can add other data and see where the matches or potential matches are or overlaps are with existing data sources. So you can, if you want, start completely from scratch and do something isolated, or you can tap into existing sources or connect to the existing source. So the variability or the flexibility is quite high.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions coming in?
Other questions? Yes, one more. How could you combine this data with patient-related data?
Okay, yeah. So we already received some questions in that direction. Just assume if you have what you have seen on the platform, the possibility to link clinical trials, for example, or publications with each other and with other data types, we can do the same thing with patient data. So you can think about, for example, clinical parameters of patients, which could be linked to or which would be used, for example, for clinical trial matching. So making a patient profile and see where it best fits with certain clinical trials is a possibility, or seeing if you have certain terms or clinical parameters where you would like to have links to the literature. That's also a possibility. So there are different use cases that you can tap into if you have patient-related data. Other questions?
Are there any other questions? You can put them in the chat or raise your hand so I can unmute you. I think all answers people had are, or all questions that people had are answered for now, Hans and Philippe. Unless there are other questions after this webinar setup, feel free to contact us. We can take it offline. But for now, I think we can wrap up this specific session for today.
Yep. Thanks. And maybe just to, as a final remark, we have the possibility also to extend further with other data sources or with other use cases. So there will be other webinars, follow-up webinars coming after this if the need is there or if people come with suggestions. Okay.
Great. So for today, thank you very much. Have a nice day and hope to see you next time on our next session.